all of those things. The age-old adage, JT, with the Tennessee Titans, no matter how much you like Nick Westbrook-Akine, they like him twice as much as that. Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast for Monday, July the 24th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network, and you can follow me on Twitter at Easton Freeze. I'm joined as always by producer JT, who you can follow on Twitter at JT_Runke. JT, how are we doing, man?
I'm good. I'm tired.
And why would that be?
And I've been wondering that all day. Like I just kept yawning all day, and I'm like, why am I so tired? And then I remembered, oh wait, I was in Regal Cinemas Opry Mills for 6 hours last night watching Barbie, and then 10 minutes later Oppenheimer, and I didn't get out until 2 a.m. So that's why I'm tired.
You pulled an authentic Barbenheimer yesterday, which
I
was
did.
Impressive.
And
Your
it wasn't
butt had to have been on fire by the end of that. Just sitting in one seat for 6 hours.
It really wasn't planned. Like I knew I was going to see Oppenheimer last
night.
night.
You texted me at 7, and you're like, "Hey, I can't come to," because we were going to Oppenheimer at 11 last night. We got done with Oppenheimer at like 2:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
We'd had that planned for like a month, and then we were trying to figure out if we're gonna go get dinner beforehand or whatever. And you're like, "Can't do dinner." We're like, "Why? What's up?" And you're like, "I'm pulling up Barbenheimer last minute, an hour before Barbie." You went and got tickets and saw that, and then you had like 7 minutes between movies. You just ran theater to theater.
Yep.
So, but let's talk about that very briefly, because I feel like it was a cultural moment this weekend.
It
Barbie
really
and
was.
Oppenheimer.
I don't think
I've
I've ever
saw
seen
both of them.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a movie like I've seen it all around the nation. Like I've not seen movie theaters this packed since like probably like Avengers Endgame or like one of the new Star Wars or something like that. Like we haven't seen like and it's crazy, right? Like
it's wild.
I wouldn't expect it to be that.
It felt like you were stepping back in time a little bit, because it really has been like a half decade at least since theaters been popping like that. When we saw Barbie on Friday, I went up to the security guard in the concessions area. I was like, "Do you work here regularly?" And he's like, "Yeah, all the time." I was like, when was the last time you saw it this packed? And he said, "I cannot remember the last time it was even remotely close to this busy in here." And everybody is in there wearing their pink shirts if they're going to see Barbie. Like it's very much a fashion moment. It was a big deal. We saw both movies. I would personally I gave Barbie like a solid 8 out of 10. I'd give Oppenheimer like a 8.5, 9 out of 10. A very good movie, not perfect, but I really enjoyed both of them. I thought they were both well worth the watch in the theaters. What'd you think?
I mean, yeah, I thought Barbie was really good. I thought the acting, like for me, the jokes I found the comedy a little bit more hit or miss compared to other
humor.
people.
It's like Three Stooges, like stupid.
Like there were many like times where I thought like, and maybe that's just like my humor. Like the theater was laughing, and I was like, all right, I get the joke. And then there was times where like Will Ferrell was just being like stupid and being Will Ferrell, and like I was the only one laughing because like I thought the directing and like what they made Will Ferrell do and like some of these characters do, I thought that was really funny. But I mean, Ryan Gosling steals the show. Margot Robbie is fantastic as always. I thought
no. Alan steals the show. Michael Cera steals the show. He was my favorite character. They did not give him enough screen time. Alan is the best one in the Barbie movie.
And then I thought Oppenheimer's fantastic.
It's good, man. I didn't get bored. I was afraid it would be a little bit too long. It's a full 3-hour movie. I didn't feel like the pacing got slow.
I thought both movies were very well paced. I thought both like. I was kind of worried once I bought the Barbie tickets. I was like, man, I'm going to be in this. I was there from 8:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. Like I was there for a full 6 hours. I was like, am I going to get bored? Am I going to regret this? And I walked out and I was like, I am no less tired than I walked in. Like I thought both movies were great. I wasn't bored at all. Oppenheimer, like for the story that it's trying to tell, it sucks you in. It makes you, it keeps you on your toes. Like it is. Christopher Nolan does a really good job at building tension in that movie.
Yeah, no, it's a Nolan masterpiece. They're both really good, both incredibly different films. But I enjoyed them both respectively. So I recommend going and seeing them both in theaters if you can. It's a lot of fun, and it feels like a revival of classic Hollywood, classic movie theater culture. Like it warmed my heart to see us back in the theaters for the first time in a long time. Today is also a big day for Titans fans. We're recording on Sunday, so I guess by Monday morning, people are well aware of and very excited by the Oilers throwbacks being not revealed because we know what they look like, but the hype videos I'm sure that will come out later tonight. We'll address that later in the show. We'll do a little addendum to the show. We'll add in late Sunday night after we've seen it as well, so we can comment on it. But I'm wearing my my Oilers throwback hat today. Felt necessary. Don't tell the old head media, don't tell old media about this. They will be very upset that how dare I, a credentialed member of the Titans beat, wear anything branded by an NFL team. It's relax, people, relax. Just a little NFL culture, man, and it's objectively gorgeous colors and logo design. So I felt like today, you know what? I'm breaking it out. I'm gonna wear it. We've got some Titans news to dig into today, JT, and then we're going to do a training camp storyline draft, a little preview, little primer before we get into camp this week. Kind of buried the lead that here we are. We're back, baby. The offseason, the long summer's night has come to a close. We have clawed our way out of the valley of the shadow of death, and we are back with some new content starting this week, covering the Titans as they go through camp through the end of July and then all through August. Then preseason will be here before you know it. And then that weird 7 to 10 day break between the preseason and the regular season will be here before we know it. And then we're off to the races, baby. And I cannot wait. The season's going to be so fun to cover. And I'm just jacked to not have to be doing off-season topics anymore. So we'll do that little training camp storyline draft to really, I think, encapsulate all the questions or concerns or areas of intrigue that we have going into camp. Probably something we'll be able to revisit on the back end to see, what questions were answered, that kind of thing. We like to come full circle on this show. And then we'll get out of here. It's going to be a 3-show week. Just go ahead and announce that off the top. We will have on Wednesday a show out, probably not the longest, but we do have our first welcome back press conference with head coach Mike Vrabel on Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. So I will be there covering that. And you can see all that in real time on my Twitter account, obviously. But then on Wednesday, we'll do a little show that will premiere Wednesday morning, just encapsulating all the thing. I'm sure we'll talk to him about DeAndre Hopkins. We'll talk about the trouble that MPF and Hassan Haskins got themselves into. We will talk about, I'm sure, what the offensive line might look like, and I'm sure he won't give much of an answer on that. We'll have to see for ourselves. We'll probably talk about the quarterback situation, things he's heard and seen and felt like players may have made progress the past 6 weeks, which he called at the end of OTAs the most important period of the offseason for his players. And so we'll have him circle back on that quote and give us some insight there. And then on Wednesday will be the first camp practice that media is able to go to. So I'll be there for that. And then on Thursday evening, we'll be doing our live taping of the Friday show. So make sure to tune in Thursday afternoon, evening, sometime in there. We'll announce the time when we get closer to that for our third show of the week, recapping both the Vrabel press conference and the first practice of the training camp portion of the year. That will debut on podcasts on Friday. So I think that's what we're going to be looking at through the duration of August and through training camp into the preseason. 3-show weeks, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, kind of back to what we were doing a lot last year. Excited about that. Without further ado, JT, let's dive into some Titans news today, and then we'll get to our training camp storyline draft. What do you say?
Yeah, let's jump right into it. And we have to start, of course, with the pre-camp transactions. So it was reported earlier this weekend, a couple of transactions, a few players already placed on the physically unable to perform list, which does count towards the active roster. That includes cornerback Caleb Farley and offensive lineman Dylan Radins. So, of course, Radins, we kind of already suspected that he wasn't going to be able to go for the start of the year. But sure. Caleb Farley, we had questions going into the offseason, what would happen with him and what it was going to look like for him coming into this training camp. And so far, not a good start for Caleb Farley. Your thoughts on those?
Well, I think some people, it was a question whether or not Caleb Farley would be ready to go by training camp. Like, we did not know. He did not know. Is in the cards.
Yes.
But I think people forget he's coming off of that additional, I think, supplementary back surgery. He's had a couple, right?
Yep.
He had some work done on his back at some point last season. I forget when exactly. It's been a good while now,
I
but
think
that is
December. I think that was
okay.
It
So
sounds December sounds right to
I
me.
think it was at the end of 2022 at some point. So I think he's had all of 2023 to rehab that. From what we've heard, little bits and pieces from what I've heard inside the building, they're expecting him to be physically able to contribute relatively soon, like at some point this season and not late into the season. That is the timeline that they are hopeful for. But obviously right now, not something he is able to do. A name that I don't think we were expecting to be on this list, but could have been, is star pass rusher Harold Landry. It's good to see him officially, there's not any issues raising to the level of being put on the PUP list. So that's good news. And I'd imagine we see a decent amount of him during training camp, as he is now, I think, almost a full, if not a full 12 months removed from tearing his ACL last time this year. Last year at this time, good English.
There you go.
And then Josh Thompson on the non-football injury list is an illness list, I think, that they had put him on, specific designation. So I'm sure that won't be a long-term deal.
Moving on to a topic that kind of has gone under the radar, but Will Levis finally signs his rookie deal. Kind of
taking our time on that
taking their time on this one. And I feel like earlier this week, I put out a tweet where it was like, it'll be interesting to see how they fit in DeAndre Hopkins, maybe a George Fant signing. And then, oh, by the way, Will Levis still hasn't signed. And of course, right, later that week, they sign Will Levis. Here are the details on that. It's a 4-year, $9,542,165 contract with a signing bonus of about $3.9 million. His 2023 cap hit is around $1.7 million. In 2024, $2.1 million. 2025, $2.6 million. 2026, $3 million. Titans' current top 51 cap space is around $14.9 million, but that, of course, is still awaiting the D-Hop details.
Yep. So that will, a chunk of that will be eaten up by DeAndre Hopkins' salary once that is implemented by these cap tracking websites over the cap and SpoTrack and whatnot. I don't think people are fully aware of the fact that while DeAndre Hopkins' base salary, as reported base, which it's not really his base, like that people, Zach Lyons and Mike Herndon went on a big spiel about this on Football and Other F Words last week about how we've got to use the right terminology for these things. His base salary is $12 million this year. That's not what is going to be attributed to the cap. His cap hit's probably going to be, I'm guessing, in the maybe $3, maybe $4 million range, potentially lower, depending on what they do with void years. And there, from what we've heard, there will be void years tacked on to the end of his 2-year contract. I'd imagine his cap hit next season is something more like the $10 to $12 million range, but this year's cap hit shouldn't eat up a whole lot of that $15-ish million of effective top 51 cap space that they have right now. And Will Levis, obviously, his cap hit this year, 1.7, relatively speaking, a drop in the bucket for the Titans. So they have some room if they want to go and add a guy like George Fant, but that's what's next on today's news. Kind of a surprising revelation on that front.
Yeah, speaking of George Fant, it was reported per Jordan Schultz, George Fant finished his workout for the Titans, but sources say the two sides will remain in touch moving forward with no deal as of right now, unable to agree to terms, but mutual interest is still there. Easton, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so he was reported by Jordan Schultz early last week when we talked about it on Friday's show. He was going to be brought in by the Titans. He was going to work out. And from all accounts, it sounded like it was kind of a formality at that point. Yeah, the Titans release Chuck McClelland, the running back, last week. And we were assuming, I think reasonably so, that was to make room to add George Fant after his workout this weekend. Sounds like they sat down to negotiate at the table, and Rand Carthon and George Fant's representatives couldn't come to an agreement. I'd imagine money is the situation. If I had to guess, the Titans probably offered him somewhere in the ballpark of a vet minimum with a little sugar on there, maybe some incentive sprinkles about games played or performance. But I'd imagine he wants much more than that, and they could not find middle ground there. They probably were very far off. And he's probably thinking, from his perspective, I am the best still swing tackle on the market right now. Odds are, unfortunately, some team in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll have a tackle go down and we'll be in a similar situation the Titans are in. Although maybe even worse, the Titans are expecting to get their young tackle NPF back after 6 weeks. If somebody goes down with a torn ACL or a bad injury of some sort, God forbid, he could be of much bigger value. And so he's probably saying, you know what? It sounds like they ended on positive terms despite not signing. He's probably going to say, I'm going to pump the brakes. I'm going to wait right now. I think that I can probably get more money if something unfortunate happens with another team in the next 3 or 4 weeks if I'm patient. So that's what he is choosing to do. Wouldn't shock me if there is no such injury, no such need from another team. He is coming back around and the Titans end up adding him later on in August.
Yeah, I would agree there. And I think that's probably been the smartest plan this entire time. I've always thought that if they do bring in George Fant, like you said, it should be for the vet minimum. I don't think there's any reason why you would give him more money when in all reality, after 6 games, he's most likely becoming a backup.
I say it's a month and a half rental. It's all
exactly
all it is, man.
And if he wants more money, I think it makes sense from both sides that even though there is a need, sometimes you don't want to get too aggressive with that need and kind of put yourself in a bad spot. The last thing that we will talk about here, the throwbacks, they're here.
Yeah, we've known about these for 2-ish years now, JT, but they're finally here and they're just so glorious. I mean, look at these things. Here's if you're watching with us on YouTube at Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page, we've got a slideshow of some of the screenshots from the release video that the Titans put out on Sunday evening, as well as some of the images they put out on their website, TennesseeTitans.com. And holy guacamole, they're so clean. They've got their promos. It's Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard, and Jeffrey Simmons wearing these in front of a giant screen of old Love Ya Blue era Oilers highlights, which is a really cool homage to that era. And they did a great job with them, obviously. Love that they went with the white helmets with the red face masks. The Oilers helmets, they changed 4 times during the Oilers run in the late 1900s, and they were all really glorious. I didn't think that was a bad option, JT. But this is probably my favorite combination: the red face mask, white helmet with the light blue and red trim jersey. Really, really fantastic looking. A bit of news that came along with this that we didn't know until they were announced Sunday night is that these jerseys, one, will be worn twice this year, but there won't be an away game in which they're wearing them. Paul Kaharski mentioned that apparently they may have been interested in trying to wear them on that late season Monday night football game down in Miami, but the NFL, he had reason to believe the NFL may have been saying no to them on that. I'm not sure where he's getting that from, but obviously Paul does a good job reporting, so I'll trust him on that. It sounds like they won't have the white away version of these jerseys, at least right now. They're just going to rock with these baby blue home versions, and they are going to officially become the new 3rd Titans jersey. So the light blue Titans jersey, people remember that they've got the whites, which are the aways, the Stormtrooper look. They've got the dark blue jerseys, which are the primary homes, and then that baby blue Titans jersey that they'd worn the past couple of seasons. A good deal, I'd say a good, like at least a third of the time. They were wearing them a ton at home and away. That's going to be replaced by these, which I didn't know how I felt about it at first because the light blue was my favorite. Like the light blue on white pant or the light blue on white pant was my favorite combination. Love that these are being implemented as not just like a once a year special throwback game, but like an actual jersey. But they're only going to wear them twice this year. And I'm hoping after the season, as they kind of break them in, they wear them more than that, because they certainly were wearing the light blue Titans jersey more than twice a year. And I want them to wear these more than twice a year. I think everybody does, because Titans fans and non-Titans fans alike on the internet pretty much all agree that these are a top 5, top 3 throwback jersey, one of the cleanest, most universally loved jerseys in the league. And so this year, twice at home, maybe once against the Texans, which would be just delicious, perfect. They will be wearing these at Nissan Stadium. Can't wait to see them in these. And the merch store they've already got out, besides just the jerseys, which actually this throwback reveal kind of sucks, JT, because they're not doing a Chig version yet.
I know. That's crazy.
So actually, I'm vehemently opposed to this. I think that they stink.
Me too.
Until further notice. But they've got a number of different, non-jersey options. Some of the hats and the sweatshirts and stuff are really, really well done, really clean. And so I think this is something that everybody is going to love, and the Titans are going to make a gajillion trillion billion dollars off of, and for good reason.
I really like the red accent, like arm pads, especially with like right? Derrick Henry right there. Like Derrick looks like a bad MFer right there. Like, yes, he looks so crazy.
Well, and fans for a long time have loved when Titans players use the red accent just with the regular jersey. Like the Jeffrey Simmons red sleeve, or the Kevin Byard red gloves or red sleeve, or what, or the red cleats. Like, that's something that people have been like, do that more. Like, wear more of that. These enable you with the red trim to really go all in. Red gloves, red sleeves, red cleats. Like, I love the red accent. That's really what makes it for me.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say about it is that I am a little bit disappointed that because they're wearing them only for home games, that we will not get the Oilers throwbacks versus the creamsicles. And that is a shame. But that is a shame. We move. And that's going to do it for our Titans news, our first Titans news of the season.
Yeah,
feels good to be back.
Feels good to be back. Thank you, JT. Let's move on now to our training camp storyline draft. JT, going to help me out with this one. We're going to go back and forth here, drafting from a predetermined pool of narrative storylines that we are anticipating being much talked about over the next couple of weeks. We're going to discuss, preview, give our thoughts. Would you like to go first, sir?
Sure, I can go first. And the first question I'm going to ask is probably one of the more relevant ones now, that has to do with D-Hop without actually having to do with D-Hop. Kind of convoluted, but who grabs the last one or two wide receiver spots on this team?
Or are there such spots?
Or is there a spot, right? So if we look at their depth chart right now, there are a couple wide receivers who are basically locks to make the roster. One being DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, NWI, Chris Moore.
And some argue NWI and Chris Moore. I'm telling you guys, I just don't see it. I'm sorry, continue, but I do. Let's talk about that in a second.
Yeah. So those five being D-Hop, Burks, NWI, Chris Moore, and Kyle Phillips are basically locks to make the roster. And if the Titans are pretty much going to sit at 6 and not go for that extra spot holding 7, I don't think.
I'll be really surprised if they go. Just the talent,
yes.
Are there 7 receivers in this pool worth keeping? I don't know. You could argue, are there 7? Maybe not. But we've talked about this, JT. You go through the depth chart for this team, and we'll be doing 53-man roster projections over the next couple of weeks. Once you get to the 43rd, 45th player, it becomes just pick your poison. You ever play dodgeball in school, and it's you get through the valuable assets, and there's 8 kids left, and you've been drafting for a while, and so you and the other captain go, you want to just kind of split them down the middle. Just very mean.
So no one gets their feelings hurt too hard.
Exactly. No one has to go last. We just, all right, the rest of you, those of you on the right and the left, let's just kind of part the waters there. That's what it's going to be with those last 8 to 10 spots on this roster.
But it does bring up the question here. So with those 5, you think they'd probably keep a 6th wide receiver, and that's where it really gets interesting here, because the wide receiver that you think they would most likely keep is their 7th round pick, Colton Dow, who we have seen over the offseason through OTAs and rookie minicamp just get better and better, improve, and increase his usage in the drills that the Titans have used him in OTAs.
Absolutely. Yep.
Which then leaves out some guys who have been on this roster now for quite some time, in Mason Kinsey and Racey McMath, and then some other guys who are undrafted free agents like Jacob Copeland and Keirs Jackson. Of course, I think there is some talent to be had there. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up recognizing that and keeping a 7th receiver, considering the injury history in the past. However, if a lot of these guys are going to hit the practice squads, I wouldn't be surprised if some other teams try and go out and grab them.
Yeah, it won't shock me at all. Let's talk about this in stages here, because I have a couple of things I want to address. The first of which is this idea that Chris Moore and Nick Westbrook-Akine aren't locks. And the argument made here by folks that sorry, but you definitely have an agenda. You just hate NWI. And I get it. I'm not saying your personal agenda is unfair or unbased. The idea that you don't want NWI and or Chris Moore being a big part of your team's wide receiver attack on paper, I understand. Truly, I do. But I don't think you're being realistic or objective when you say that they're not locks. And the reason being, when you look at it from a very baby pool depth, shallow level, you just look at the contracts, look at what the team has committed to them, right? NWI on a very minimal 1-year deal. Chris Moore, I believe, also on a 1-year deal for a insignificant-ish amount of money. And so from that standpoint, from a financial commitment standpoint, it makes sense that, you know what, after D-Hop and Burks and Kyle Phillips, it's anybody's ball game. To an extent, that's the way that camp goes. But NWI is the most tenured Titan receiver on this list, and not a guy like Mason Kinsey, who's also very tenured, but is never on the field or on the sidelines on Sunday. He's tenured on the team as an active element of the team on the sidelines on Sundays, and in recent years on the fields a lot on Sundays. And so he's somebody that they're going to keep around, that they have the ultimate trust in. They trust his chemistry with the team, his understanding of their concepts, all of those things. The age-old adage, JT, with the Tennessee Titans, no matter how much you like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, they like him twice as much as that. That's just how it goes. That's what the Titans and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine's relationship looks like. So I will be floored if he is not a lock on this roster by the 53-man cut down. With Chris Moore, you got to think about situationally when they added him, what that meant for what they were anticipating him meaning to this team, his role. At the time, he was their only free agent addition to that wide receiver room. And they went out and got him. It was one of Ran Carthen's first moves as a GM, and they have been sitting with him in that building and on the field for months now, anticipating him being an element of this offense, playing a role for this team. I don't think that's going to suddenly shift because of Treshaun Harrison and Jacob Copeland and Jackson Kieris and Gavin Holmes, this rookie contingent, or the promise of Racey McMath or Reggie Roberson. I just don't see that happening. And so, yeah, again, if one of these guys if Jacob Copeland plays all August with his hair on fire and this coaching staff falls in love with his potential, maybe there's some discussion there. But I think they're much more likely to go into a discussion of, man, Jacob Copeland, for example, playing with his hair on fire. We want this guy on our roster. The promise is just too big to pass up. That, I think, sparks a conversation of, do we go with 7 wide receivers before it goes to, all right, Chris Moore or NWI? Who aren't we keeping? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's been the plan this entire time. I don't think you bring in Chris Moore. I think you brought in Chris Moore to be a veteran presence, and ultimately got even more of a veteran presence in DeAndre Hopkins. But at the time, Chris Moore was going to be that veteran presence in a room that really didn't have any tenure on the field whatsoever.
Right. The other thing I want to talk about is, again, outside of these top 5 receivers that we're expecting to be locks, you have 2 very different contingents, right? You have the group of the group of 3 receivers on this team that have been around for a while and are back of the roster guys always this time of year in the discussion, in Racey McMath, Reggie Roberson Jr., and Mason Kinsey. It's been a couple of years at least with each of them, some many years now, in which we've been talking about them in August a lot. Preseason darlings. Will they make the team? Won't they? Always on the fringes. And then you have this young coalition of players, these 5 rookies, one of which is the leader in the clubhouse in our eyes, and Colton Dowell, their 7th round draft pick. Then Treshaun Harrison, Jacob Copeland, Jackson Kieris, and Gavin Holmes, all of which have made some splashes so far in my memory being out there with media at OTAs. The ones that I would say really have any shred of a chance are Jacob Copeland and Jackson Kieris out of
Jackson.
Did I say Jackson Kieris?
Yes.
I'm looking at the depth chart in their list, last name, first name. Thank you. Kieris Jackson out of Georgia, and then Copeland out of Maryland. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so those 2 may make a push just depending on how well their August goes. But out of those 2 coalitions, I'd say I don't know. I know fans have, and I kind of think that the coaching staff has soured a little bit on the promise of Racey McMath and Reggie Roberson Jr. and certainly Mason Kinsey. I think if they were to take a flyer on any of these guys, adding a seventh, it's more likely to be one of these rookies because they have some more promise. It's a proven quantity now that you can stash Mason Kinsey, you can stash Reggie Roberson, you can stash Racey McMath on your practice squad. And they're kind of just still there for you. You know, like maybe some team comes along and scoops one of them up. But with these rookies, I think they're much more likely to be sniped by another team if you try to stash them on the practice squad. And so because of that, I think it's Dowell as the sixth. And then if there's a seventh, maybe it's a rookie that plays his butt off in August.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there.
All right, let me get to my first draft pick here. And it's I appreciate you. This was a great producer / host role deciding here. You left the one that you knew I'd want to talk about to me, so I appreciate. It's the obvious, and this is the obvious one, right? It's the number one storyline. It's the only question that legitimately this week, as we're getting close to training camp, I've had real people in the real world, both family, friends, and strangers, talk to me about. You know, their question is this: what's the quarterback situation? Right? What's it going to look like in August? And specifically, who is the quarterback 2 for this team? Is it Malik Willis? Is it Will Levis? This was the conversation as soon as the Titans drafted Will Levis, obviously, back in the spring. But now we're going to finally get a solid 5 weeks with some actual preseason action and some joint training camp practice action and consecutive days each week in a row where we get to see the two in pads throwing live bullets in practice. And so that's really, really exciting. And it's going to be, I think, pretty revelatory in understanding what the pecking order for this quarterback room looks like. As of right now, just to refresh people on what we came to a conclusion of at the end of OTAs, it was Ryan Tannehill leaps and bounds above the rest, naturally. And then it was kind of Malik Willis 2A, Will Levis 2B. If you had to give a leg up, it was Malik Willis, but that was understandable and expected considering he's a second-year quarterback and Will Levis is a rookie coming into a new system. But obviously, I think we all agree that the promise in this season, at least, is higher with Will Levis. I think most people expect him to surpass Malik at some point. Does that come in August? I kind of think that there's a better chance than not that by the end of August, we're saying, okay, it's going to be Tannehill, then Levis, then Malik. But, you know, you and I on the show, our relationship with Malik's quarterback coach, Sean, and all of these things that we've talked about with him, it wouldn't shock me, JT. It would not shock me if we had a really impressive August from the both of them. And it just really solidifies once we get to the cut down day. They have to keep both of these guys. There's just too much promise in both of them. And wow, Malik really surprised some people.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. If you were asking me right now who the quarterback 2 is going into the season, though, I think there is more of a chance than not that Will Levis does become the quarterback 2. And as I sit here thinking about it, it probably is just more because of the system and the kind of offense that this team wants to play. I think. Who is
the stereotypical backup for Ryan Tannehill that you want between them? It's obviously Levis, right?
It is obvious the point. And I think that's the point there, that if something crazy happens and Ryan Tannehill has to miss a game or two, you want the guy who isn't going to absolutely totally shift your offensive identity for 2 games. I think. Right.
And I think that's what his strengths and weaknesses. You don't have to shift things dramatically.
And I think in the sake of continuity and keeping this team kind of on track, you probably want to take Levis out there. Now, if Malik Willis just absolutely balls out, I think it's hard pressed to not say that he is vying for that spot, but that's just something we'll have to see for training camp.
Yeah. All right. What's our next pick for the training camp narrative storyline draft, JT?
I'm going to go to keep on the offensive side of the ball here, though, and go with how do the Titans handle the offensive line, and more so, how do they fill this hole at right tackle? We talked about in the Titans news section that George
Not
Fant.
George Fant.
Not currently coming to this team. And as I look here on our lads, by the way, thank you, our lads, for fixing your egregious depth chart.
We successfully bullied them into fixing it. Let's go.
We did. But currently, right now, as it stands, our lads is projecting Daniel Brunskill to move out to the right tackle position. And in his place in right guard, they currently have Jordan Ruse in there. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's probably the most likely scenario right now, if you had to ask me. We might disagree on this.
I like wow, because we disagree. So yeah, they left to right now. They've got Dillard, Skoronski, Brewer, as expected, and then Ruse, Brunskill. Okay. Yeah. I'll let you explain why you think this is the best scenario.
I think just from a veteran perspective, it's easier to move Daniel Brunskill outside and keep him there and let kind of one of these younger guys or just kind of more inexperienced guys like Jordan Ruse or Jamarco Jones or one of the two rookies in Jalen Duncan or John Ojukwu kind of fill in that right guard role between Aaron Brewer and Daniel Brunskill. I think that's what makes it the most comfortable out there. And then, of course, you kind of move Daniel Brunskill right back into his bread and butter position once MPF comes back. I think for the sake of comfortability, that is for my money's worth the best option right now.
Yeah, and you may have changed my mind a little bit. I don't think this is unlikely. I'm not sure.
Well, what was yours?
Well,
like your gut feeling right now.
The crux of my disagreement was I just think they're going to, like we've been talking about, want to go with the most minimally invasive surgery on this offensive line as possible. And changing two guys, both the right tackle and guard, on paper, I think that's less likely to happen just knowing this team and this coaching staff. But as I consider all the options for the right tackle fill-in, Brunskill is, to be fair, the guy who is the only one I'm really comfortable with saying that it won't be a total dumpster fire. I don't think it'll be great, but I don't think he'll embarrass himself and ruin things for the team that way. My other disagreement with that scenario is I'm not sure Jordan Ruse is the next guy up at guard.
I don't think either, but like if you had to put someone in there currently.
Well, I would consider Corey Levin or Jamarco Jones in there at guard before I think I would consider Ruse. But there is an element of six of one, half dozen of the other, right? So what I think is a possibility, and they're certainly going to at least give it a try. They're just going to see how it looks. I think that Jamarco Jones, Jalen Duncan, and John Ojukwu are all going to get their fair share of opportunities over the coming weeks at that right tackle position. Because I think on paper, if they could leave Brunskill at guard and find one of those three guys, Jamarco Jones, Jalen Duncan, John Ojukwu, Duncan and Ojukwu both being rookies, late round or undrafted free agent rookies, it's unideal for all three of them. And the Titans are in a tough situation here, as we've discussed. But I think they're going to try, because if they can get themselves to a point where they're comfortable with one of those guys at that tackle position and you can leave Brunskill at guard just as a Band-Aid. Again, this is all just a Band-Aid for Nicholas Petit-Frere to return after his stupid gambling suspension is up. And by stupid, I mean a stupid decision on his part to break a very stupid rule. Stupid all around. I think that they'll try it. So will it be successful? Maybe not. Maybe at the end of the day, it is Brunskill out there because he's the veteran you trust most. But I think they'll give him every opportunity. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So maybe a question preceding this question here. Who is so if they were going to keep Daniel Brunskill, which by the way, to your point, Brunskill has not played right tackle since 2019. So right. It's been a long time. He was at right tackle and then played a little bit of left tackle in 2019, and then ultimately towards the end of that season played right guard, and then from there he's played center or right guard, and that's pretty much been it. So he hasn't played the position in quite some time. So if you were going to keep him at the right guard position, who are you taking at right tackle right now? Because I think I have a hot take answer.
This is like playing the shell game, but I didn't get to watch you when you put the peanut under the shells. Like I feel I'm having to totally guess here. My gut initial reaction, and this sounds crazy because he's not done anything with the Titans, but we've seen him in Seattle, and when he was out there on the field, he was at least serviceable. Like, John Robinson wasn't crazy to go get him. It just has not worked out at all so far. It's Jamarco Jones. And that's purely because with Ojokwu and Duncan, who I both love their long-term prospects infinitely more than that of Jamarco Jones. They both actually have promise to potentially become starters one day down the road. There's just an element of, man, there's a reason these guys are tackles that went undrafted and in the 6th round. We saw last year NPF as a 3rd round tackle, as a highly graded recruit, come in and at the right tackle position, really struggle at times. Really struggle. Like, there's a reason why tackles go in the 1st and the 2nd round. They're a premium draft position because the ones that are capable of performing early are so few and far between. There's so much polish that has to be added and buffed into their player profile, their ability. Once they get to the NFL, these 2 guys are going to have to make really, really big leaps. But I already know you're about to sit here and tell me, let John Ojokwu cook. Isn't that right?
No, actually.
No, that wasn't your hot take? Okay.
No, I'm going dark horse. I think Jalen Duncan. I think Jalen Duncan is my current dark horse, because I get what you're saying. I think like gut feeling, Jamarco Jones is probably the right answer.
It's the safest guess.
It's the safest answer. But I mean, I could totally see Jalen Duncan kind of coming in here and being a serviceable right tackle.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to our next draft topic. And these are going to get more spark. We're talking a long time on them, but we've got the biggest ones out of the way here. Let me do my next training camp storyline draft pick will be the entire safety position. And I will not beat this horse dead as we have all summer, but just to kind of recap and refresh as we enter the period where we're finally going to get an answer to this. This position is in a bit of sneaky dire straits. Kevin Byard and the Titans get their deal done for him to take a pay cut, which is good, and I think may have hinged on DeAndre Hopkins coming. And Kevin Byard, like, we'll see the details of that contract eventually, but I'd imagine there was some in it for him in terms of future money. There's also incentives that they've added in for him to get more money this year if he plays to his level. But I think besides Byard and Amani Hooker as those top 2 guys, as the Titans have had them the past couple of years. And then, as we've talked about, cornerback, defensive backfield convert, Elijah Molden. Man, names are I'm struggling with names today. Elijah Molden, potentially being that do-it-all defensive backfield guy, being the safety when they need him in there as that 3rd guy. Man, oh man, does it get? I mean, Josh Thompson, who's currently on the illness list, rookie Matthew Jackson, rookie Tyreek Jones, Mike Brown from Cleveland. Like, this list of guys is the definition of lawn chairs and deck furniture, man. It's a bunch of dudes that you're just going to go set out there on the grass and they're not going to do a whole lot. And you certainly don't want them out there. Love the top 2. Maybe we'll like the top 3 at the safety position. But boy, if you lose even one of them, things get ugly fast, and you're going to need them to either go find somebody in August to bring into this rotation to add in, or you're going to need one of these no names to really make a name for themselves in a hurry. Yeah,
I agree. It is very, very scarce out there. So
it can get ugly really fast.
It really can. And like,
if everything's perfect, it's really good. Like, it's a razor thin margin. Because if they stay perfectly healthy, I love the safety room. If they're even a little bit hurt, it's a disaster.
And like, just looking at some of like what is out there right now, if it comes to that, like,
let me guess, nobody.
John Johnson from Cleveland, Devin McCourty, who I believe retired. So that is not Marcus Allen from Pittsburgh. Like, like a lot of people that like you may have like, they're great. Great players to know for, like, the new Immaculate Grid game.
Grid, sure. Yeah. Great for that. Yes.
Great for that. Maybe not for this
real
team
football?
or real football. The next question that I'm going to take here is Harold Landry. What does he look like? What's the deal?
Yeah.
Is he? And that's really it.
Jerry Seinfeld voice. What's the deal with Harold Landry?
What's the deal with Harold Landry? Yeah. How is he going to look? How are they going? I want to see how they first implement him, I think, into training camp.
Slow.
Are we and I hope it is.
Sure.
And that's probably a good thing, but it'll just be interesting to see kind of who once, even as we get into deeper into training camp,
right,
who's taking these first team snaps. Are we still seeing him maybe kind of be the number 2 guy behind like Arden Key and a couple other guys,
right?
And see how he progresses getting back onto the field. So just interested to see him, maybe kind of get to talk to him, see how he's been feeling and how his offseason has gone, and see how his outlook looks for this season.
Yeah, that's a good one, and I agree with you that they should take it slow. I'm very confident that they will take it slow, and we may not see much out of Harold Landry at all until late August, but that will be fine. Slow play it. He's a veteran, pro's pro. He'll be fine. So if fans are eager to see all there is to see about Harold Landry, I would just relax. You're gonna have to, whether you want to or not. I don't think it's coming soon. My next training camp storyline draft pick, I'm gonna go with DeAndre Hopkins. Hey, welcome to town. I was DMing him earlier this weekend. We were talking back and forth. Told him I could not wait to get to finally meet him after I have accidentally been very mixed up with him this summer online, and he's been.
Well, it sounds like a couple Titans.
Oh boy,
people.
I've been talking to the real DeAndre Hopkins. Some
that's
friends of the show accidentally were talking to some fake DeAndre Hopkins, who gave us thank God bless this person, whoever this weird little troll is, with DeAndre Hopkins' old phone number. Pretty Boy Kelly, fantastic nickname, absolutely going nowhere. I'll call him to his face. I don't care. I'm guessing. I think he's got a sense of humor. I think he'll find it funny, and we're certainly not going to let it go. But yeah, DeAndre, I've spoken a little bit with him. I've already told him I can't wait to talk to him, and he reciprocated that. We'll get to chat with him. I'm hoping this week at practice, assuming he's there, and I think that he is in Nashville now. This is really I've buried the lead here. What's the question, Easton? Here we go. I got you. What's he going to do? Like, same deal with Harold Landry. We know DeAndre Hopkins is an aging player. He's got some, not injuries, but physical limitations with his plantar fasciitis and stuff like that, where he has to constantly manage those things. And that comes with less practice than the typical player. There's been a lot of talk in the past from former fans and media members of former teams of his. Cardinals folks right now will tell you, have fun, because this dude doesn't like to practice. He does not practice, and he doesn't like it. He said he does in interviews, and I'm not saying I don't know who to like. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Who cares? Will he? That's the question. I'm kind of guessing he will at first practice, so maybe go hard one day, and then just kind of, I don't know. I think he'll be more involved than Julio Jones was that first summer, but will he be as involved as Treylon Burks? No, I think that here's one thing, we've been talking in the spring about how Burks was getting that star treatment, working off to the side one-on-one with the wide receiver coaches during, regular team drill practice. The rest of the receivers are running drills. He's off working one-on-one, getting that wide receiver one treatment. Obviously that same deal will be afforded to DeAndre Hopkins, but will it be both of them, or will they be working separate? Does this demote Treylon back? Is he getting bumped from his one specialty spot and having to go back with the rest of the? I doubt that's the case, but I think you're going to see a lot of DeAndre Hopkins working one-on-one on the side with Treylon Burks, and whether or not he's out there every day, that's a question that I have.
My last question here, as we draft these, is going to be Hassan Haskins. Hello, you still here? Like,
why are you still here? Maybe is the question.
That is probably the question.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's something that will be asked on Tuesday to Mike Vrabel,
Absolutely.
and it's
there will be no answer. We're gonna let the legal process play out. We understand it's a severe situation. We're monitoring it. Thanks, Mike. Yeah.
There you go. But it still does beg the question of, he is still on this roster, and on the heels of the Titans cutting a running back from this roster earlier this past weekend or last week. How long does Hassan Haskins stay on this roster?
Yeah, I think the answer is longer than people think, longer than they may want, but I'd imagine they're going to let the legal process play out. And in fact, I'm pretty positive they will, because if they were going to cut him before camp, they would have done it already. Right. Like there's no point in them waiting till now and then being like, he's out of here. No, they're going to get all the facts, let the legal process play out, and that will probably cause some awkward conversations when we get out there. Last question of the entire training camp storyline draft is this, and I briefly messaged this guy a couple weeks ago. I should check back in with him because he's a really nice guy, and I'm curious to hear how his offseason has gone. Trey Wolf, rookie UDFA kicker out of Texas Tech. We hyped him up a lot in the spring, and he deserved that hype. I don't have a personal connection with him. I got to know him at camp when I spoke to him. Also have spoken to Caleb Shudak, his competition. One of those two guys, I can tell you this for sure, is going to be the kicker for this team. Like people talking about how go get this guy, go get that guy. Robbie Gold's still out there. Brett Maher, Michael Badgley. Michael Badgley is still out there now that the Detroit Lions have cut him in the past couple of days. There's going to be a lot of, I think, hoopla and hollering around bringing somebody in to be a veteran known commodity. And yes, I understand that as fans not there at practice, it totally makes sense 100%. But you got to trust me when I tell you I'm there at camp, I'm watching these guys kick. They are being treated like, and for good reason, the 1 and 2 man competition for who is the starting kicker for this team. It's going to be one of them. They both have looked very, very solid. I think Trey Wolf's ceiling is a little bit higher, and I like the distance and power he brings to the game. But Caleb Shudak, no slouch in that regard either. Very different looking players, relatively different styles of kicking, and one of them is going to be the starter. But will Trey Wolf, we're a Trey Wolf podcast, as we've said in the past. Sorry, Caleb, nothing personal, and like I hope the better kicker wins. And if Caleb Shudak is the better kicker in August, I hope he gets the job. We're pulling for Trey Wolf just a little bit, and that might be for selfish reasons because we have a relationship with Trey Wolf and not with Caleb Shudak yet. But we will build those inroads if and when a cut happens in that regard. All right, that is it for our training camp storyline draft today, and that is it for our show, JT. Last show before we've got real, actionable, new Titans content from St. Thomas Sports Park up in North Nashville in Germantown. Cannot wait to get there. Like I said, the top of the show, I will be there on Tuesday for the Mike Vrabel press conference around 11:30 a.m. And then again, Wednesday morning for the first practice of training camp. Cannot wait. A couple of things before you go. Hey, if you're not following us on YouTube or Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Hot Read Pod, go follow us there. But especially on Twitter, if you want updates for the show and the ability to get the show via all the different avenues, whether you like to listen on podcast traditionally or watch the YouTube show or watch on Twitter or watch on Facebook, wherever that may be, you can do all of that through the links on our Twitter account. So at Hot Read Pod, go give us a follow. We just crossed 500 followers the other day, which is cool. Let's get to 1,000.
We crossed 500, and then of course when you get to that big number, some people randomly unfollow you. So now we're at 499 again.
No, so we definitely need somebody to get us back to 500.
We need like 6 of you to like follow us, so we're at like 506, so that I have like I have a comfortable buffer to actually put out a 500 follower post, because like it's really embarrassing to put out a 500 follower post and then you're back under it's tough.
100%. Hey, and then follow us on YouTube, the Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. Just search Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. You'll find all of our content there. We're going to be ramping that up and out pretty dramatically in the coming weeks with clips and things from training camp and all of this stuff. So definitely give us a follow, a subscription over there on the Broadway Sports Media YouTube page. And then if you have not heard, the Hot Read podcast has partnered with Zen Sportsbook, the newest sportsbook here in the state of Tennessee. You earn an unlimited 5% cashback welcome bonus with them. And that is on all of your betting volume, win or lose. 5% cashback in your account for all of your bets for the first 15 days when you use code HOTPOD, HOTPOD. When you sign up, referral code HOTPOD, HOTPOD. 5% cash back the first 15 days is a special welcome bonus, and then 3% in perpetuity after that. So forever and always getting cash on your betting volume with all of your bets, win or lose. Kind of like a credit card. You know, you're getting that cash back all the time, baby. Turn that into the system with which you bet over at Zen Sportsbook, our wonderful partner. That's going to be it for us. We'll be back on Wednesday. Again, we'll recap the Mike Vrabel introductory press conference for training camp, which will be on Tuesday morning. So make sure to check out your inboxes on Wednesday morning, first thing, for that podcast. And then follow us on Twitter at Easton Freeze, at JT_Runke, at Hot Read Pod for all of the first training camp updates live and to the moment while we're there on Wednesday for the first practice. And then we'll be back on Thursday evening recording our show for Friday morning live Thursday evening. If you want to come check us out, come ask questions, come hang, come give your input on how camp has started. That will post on YouTube and on podcast platforms first thing Friday morning. So this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday should be that way from here on out. So excited. Can't wait until Wednesday. For producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Let's go NFL, baby. Cannot wait. We're so close. We'll talk to you then.